must have been 2, maybe 3 years ago now. I was attending a Henley knowledge management forum, and we had an excellent speaker, a guy called Bob Buckman, who I'm sure many people might know in KM circles. And at the end of his talk, a young woman in the audience asked Bob, she said, we've implemented a knowledge management system in our organization. And by a knowledge management system, she meant some sort of technical system that allowed people to enter ideas into a database that could be shared. So she said, we've developed this system, but nobody is using it. How can we make them use it? Listen to those words. How can we make them use it? Make them use it. And I thought this was a rather interesting question. And Bob gave his answer. I've forgotten what Bob's answer was now, but the audience started to join in, and they started to suggest things like incentives. Give them things like air miles or little presents and various things to motivate them to put this information into the database. And that doesn't convince me. It doesn't work for me at all. I think it's fundamentally flawed. So I spoke up and I said to her, to what extent were these people involved in the conception of the system, the design of the system, and the rollout of the system? And she said, oh, we didn't involve them at all. And I think she saw the look of horror on my face, and she quickly added, oh, we thought of that, but management wanted the system yesterday. We didn't have the time. And I thought, oh, that's absolutely wonderful. So she delivered the system on time, on budget, but nobody was using it. So that was the story, and that story kind of just hugely influenced me, because so many so-called KM systems that have been implemented in organizations have failed, and a lot of other systems as well, similar to KM systems, fail in the same sort of way. And there are a few lessons to be drawn from it, and it goes back to that original question, how do we make them use it? First of all, this concept that there's a them and an us, and that we're better than them, and we have got to force them or make them use it because they are either too stupid to understand or they're too stupid to actually want to do this because, for selfish reasons or whatever. So the first lesson for me is that I don't think in organizations these days that there's really a them and an us. Managers have got a lot less authoritative power than they ever used to have. And when it comes to encouraging people to work more collaboratively together, you've got to get away from that them-us mindset. So that was one of the first lessons from that. The second one is this whole concept of make. Again, I don't think you can make people do anything. The old adage about taking a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I think it's the same with knowledge sharing. You can give people knowledge, but you can't make them share it. So we've got to get away from this concept of making and forcing people to do things. The third element, the third lesson, if you will, is okay, if you don't make them, how do you get them to do it? Actually, I'm using the same language there. How do you get them? How do you encourage them to use a system? And it's got to be about engaging them from the very beginning, getting them involved so that they feel some ownership of it, so that they're part of it. You can't just give people things and say, you will use that anymore, especially when it comes to knowledge management. You've got to engage them, you've got to involve them. And that really is the fundamental lesson from that whole story.